Hey guys, Kevin here. Today we're going to talk about if you have EcoTank printer that already has ink in it, how can you convert it to sublimation ink so you can make yourself a sublimation printer? Let's get started. You'll need a sublimation ink, of course, and you need a syringe. I do not recommend those like large syringe with wings, and then you have use adapters. Do not use this. Just use a regular syringe, and that should work fine. You need a screwdriver. If you have a pigment ink in your printer, I suggest to get a bottle of pigment ink base. And go to your grocery store and get a bottle of distilled water, not just purified or mineral water. It must say distilled. If you have EcoTank, most likely you have dye ink, so that's not the one I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is the pigment ink. Pigment ink doesn't go into the paper; they lay on top of paper. So pigment particles they are designed to attract to each other and form like something like cement and cemented on top of the paper. Dye ink is designed to penetrate the paper. It's basically it's like a salt. And everything is totally dissolved, so it's very easy to clean and very easy to get rid of. Versus pigment, you can see the let's use the red dot as like a pigment. So they try to attract to each other and form a cement. And so what you do is you put in a chemical matrix to let them to push each other away, and those particles, when in an ink bottle, they are suspended inside this chemical matrix. However, if you add something to it, you add a dye ink in it, it doesn't have this matrix, and those particles attract to each other, and therefore it's going to block your print ad. Therefore, before you add a dye ink to break this matrix, I suggest just add some clear ink base that has that matrix, and just push the particles further apart and flush them out of the system. And this is totally optional. You don't have to do this, and you can just put the ink in and see what happens. Most of the time, I would say like 80-90% of times, the printer will just doing fine because there's not much ink left there. Also, the printer nozzle is about 200 times larger than the particle. So you imagine you have to have at least 200 of them to bundle together to block it. So it's a small chance. If you're a person not like small chances, you can just go to bchtechnologies.com and go to ink for printers and refill ink for Epson and O pigment, and you should find a bottle of clear ink base there. There you go. How to tell the inks are pigment or dye? You can look at it. For the color ones, you can look at the yellow color. The dye inks yellow look like a water, yellow water. The pigment yellow look like mac and cheese. Some printer use dye for the colors and use pigment for the black. You can just do a search and look at your ink number, and for example 502, just Google it, 502 pigment or dye. If you're not sure, like me, bought it from Facebook, you don't know what the previous owner did it to it. What you can do is put a drop ink in the water and see what the color turns out. If it turns out like purplish, and that's probably dye. If it look like a light gray or black, and that's pigment. Let's get started. Power your printer off, and your cartridge will be locked by that white block. And see that rod, and use your finger push it forward, or I call it counterclockwise. You will see the lock is released. Now remove the screw and take the cover off. If you work with Epson, you'll probably have those really huge syringes with spiral connection to adapter. And this is really good at sucking ink out of the ink cartridges. But for the EcoTank, the adapter is too small. The opening of the adapter is too small. You can see it's hard to suck anything out of it. The best thing actually is just regular syringe with a slid-on connection, or just any regular syringe will do the work. I just happen to have a 50 ml, and that makes my life a little bit easier. Where to find those syringes? Of course, bchtechnologies.com. Accessories, syringe and needles. When you suck the ink out, make sure you do it very slowly, and because the ink tank is basically held by a membrane, you don't want to push it too hard to break that membrane. This is I'm doing it at a regular speed. That's how slow it is. If you still have the original ink, Epson ink bottle, you can just fill the bottle with whatever you want to use to flush it. In this case, we don't know what the previous owner did to the black, and we're going to put some pigment ink base to do the first flush. And then we draw the ink out. The second flush is just distilled water. Now we can fill up the Epson bottle with sublimation ink and put it in. And after that, prime the ink box one more time. Make sure the real ink comes out. For the color, it's easily identified as a dye ink, so we just do one flush with distilled water. Also, if you're tired of waiting for those bottles to empty, what we do in the shop is we have a piece of tube that's exactly the same diameter, and we just squirt a bottle of ink in. Where to find this tube? Of course, bchtechnologies.com. Accessories and tubing. Again, if you do this way, do not squeeze too hard, and everything inside is a membrane, so you want to do with a limit. Don't forget to prime, and do this for the other colors. After turning it on, we hold the stop button for 3 seconds to light the printer into ink charge mode. This will flush out the ink life inside the printhead. And then we'll print some color pages. You'll know the sublimation ink is brown, the black is brown. So you can see there's a still ink mixture of real Epson ink and the sublimation ink. So we should cancel the print and go back to computer, go to find your printer, then go to the preferences. Inside the preferences, use the built-in function to do a head cleaning. After cleaning, there's still a little bit of ink left. So what you can do is you can just start using the printer and set the printing mode to be high. So you might still have a little bit of ink showing. If you're not sure if it's clogging or the remaining ink, you can just print a nozzle check. If the nozzle check look perfect and that's the remaining ink, it's not a big problem. And just keep doing it until you get this nicely, evenly brownish color. I hope you enjoyed this video. Visit us at www.bchtechnologies.com or locally, Greensboro, North Carolina. Cheers!
Technology. My printer. Print with freedom, feel like a winner. My printer. What are you waiting for? BCH.
Hey guys, Kevin here. Today we're going to talk about if you have EcoTank printer that already has ink in it, how can you convert it to sublimation ink so you can make yourself a sublimation printer? Let's get started. You'll need a sublimation ink, of course, and you need a syringe.